It started like any other Sunday. Same trail, same playlist, same stretch of road I'd jogged 100 times before. The air was crisp, that early spring kind of cold where your lungs sting a little, and every breath feels like a reset. I remember feeling good, peaceful even, like maybe the week ahead wouldn't be as heavy as the last. I pushed the front door open, still catching my breath, wiping sweat off my forehead with the sleeve of my hoodie. The scent hit me first. Something different in the air, like cologne I didn't recognize, mixed faintly with the lingering notes of Brooke's shampoo. I stepped into the living room and froze. There it was, a jacket, tossed carelessly over the arm of the chair we bought together from that overpriced boutique downtown. It wasn't mine. Too big in the shoulders, not her style either. Charcoal gray, a subtle houndstooth pattern. Expensive. Way more expensive than anything I would have ever bought for myself, or that I'd seen her wear. I stared at it for longer than I probably should have. Just stood there, shoes still wet, keys still in my hand. That jacket didn't belong. I moved toward it slowly, like if I approached it too fast it might disappear and take this creeping feeling in my gut with it. But it didn't. Stayed there, real, undeniable. A quiet unease started to build in my chest. I headed to the kitchen, telling myself I was overreacting. Maybe her brother had stopped by. Maybe one of her friends left it, though I couldn't think of a single guy friend of hers who would wear something like that. That's when I saw the glass in the sink. It was a short tumbler, one of the heavy ones we got for our wedding registry. There was a faint lipstick stain on the rim, bold red, almost theatrical. Brooke never wore lipstick like that. She stuck to soft pinks or clear gloss. Always said red felt too aggressive. But here it was brazen and mocking. I didn't move for a long time. I just stared at the glass like it could somehow explain itself. The sunlight hit it in just the right way to make the smudge stand out, like a bruise on something that used to be clean. Footsteps. I heard them coming from the hallway. A moment later, Brooke appeared, walking out of the bathroom wrapped in her white towel, the one with the little embroidered "B" on it. Hair damp, cheeks flushed. She looked at ease. Too at ease. She was scrolling on her phone, thumb moving fast like she was in the middle of a conversation. She glanced up and smiled like nothing was off. "Hey babe, back already?" "Yeah," I said, voice tight. She didn't look up again, just kept scrolling. Then, casually, almost as an afterthought, she typed something real quick. Couple of taps. Then hit send. I shouldn't have been able to see it. I was behind her at an angle, but there was a mirror over the mantel, and just for a second, I caught the reflection. "I'll call later." That was it. For words. She had no idea I saw, and something in me split open. Not in a loud, catastrophic way. More like a slow-motion crack, like when glass fractures under pressure but holds its shape for a moment before shattering. That message, that jacket, that glass. They were all pieces of something I hadn't wanted to admit. She walked past me, kissed my cheek like she always did, and headed upstairs. Her phone buzzed from somewhere behind her, probably from the jacket's pocket. I stood alone in the kitchen, heart pounding, mind blank. It's strange how betrayal doesn't feel the way you expect it to. It's not like the movies. No instant explosion of anger or demands for answers. What I felt was quieter, colder. Like the air had been *ked out of the room and replaced with fog. I walked into the living room and sat down on the couch, hands still trembling from the run. Though now, I wasn't sure if it was adrenaline or something else entirely. The room felt different. Not just because of the jacket or the glass. Everything suddenly felt staged, like a set built for a version of my life I didn't recognize anymore. Our framed photos on the shelves, the coffee table book we picked out together, the candle that had burned halfway down. It all felt like props. I tried to shake it off. I really did. I tried to tell myself there could be a reason. Maybe she had a friend over. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. But the truth is, those kinds of thoughts don't show up out of nowhere. They come from somewhere deeper, from a place where doubt has already been growing, silently, like roots under the surface. And that moment, that jacket, that glass, that message, was just the part of the iceberg that finally breached the water. I sat there for a long time, long enough for her to come back down dressed in leggings and a hoodie, ready for brunch or errands or whatever excuse she'd give for not being around later. She moved around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't standing in the same room breathing the same poisoned air. "Want me to make you something?" she asked, opening the fridge. I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to be cold, but because I didn't trust my voice. Because I was suddenly realizing something terrifying. This wasn't the first red flag. It was just the first one I couldn't ignore. And somehow, even with everything swirling around in my head, I knew this was going to change everything. She just sent a message to someone, completely unaware that it would be the last one she ever sent him. Not because of anything I planned to do, but because in that one small moment when she thought I wasn't watching, something permanent broke between us. And there's no undoing that kind of fracture. Not with time. Not with apologies. Not even with the truth. The jacket stayed in the living room all day. Brooke didn't touch it. Didn't move it. She acted like it wasn't even there. Maybe she thought I hadn't noticed. Maybe she was waiting for me to bring it up to throw the first stone so she could act surprised, offended even. I didn't give her that. I didn't say a word. Not then. I kept playing the role she expected, silent, steady, the man who never asked too many questions. And the more I stayed quiet, the louder the doubts in my head became. That night, as I lay beside her in bed, I watched her fall asleep like I had so many times before. But now every breath she took felt like a stranger's. Her phone was on her nightstand, face down, screen dark. I reached toward it once, halfway through the motion, then stopped. I didn't need more proof. I wasn't sure I could handle more. Instead, I closed my eyes and let the memories come. They didn't show up in order. Just flashes, fragments that landed like paper cuts. 2 weeks ago, she came home late from a strategy dinner with her boss. I remember how she walked through the door, fresh in makeup, the faint scent of a new perfume I didn't recognize. When I asked about it, she shrugged. "A client gave it to me," she said, breezy and unbothered. "Some kind of thank you gift." I believed her. Then there was the change in her wardrobe. More lace. Finer fabrics. I noticed it because I'd done the laundry one weekend and found 3 new pairs of underwear I'd never seen before, tags still on. She said she got them on sale. Self-care, she called it. Don't overthink it, babe. I tried not to. God knows I tried. Another time, maybe a month ago, I walked into the living room and found her closing her laptop a little too quickly. She smiled, too bright, too rehearsed. "Just reading an article," she said, standing to hug me before I could glance at the screen. Later, I checked the browser history. Nothing strange. Of course. She was smart. Smarter than me in that regard. Then there were the late showers. Always after 10 p.m., always after long stretches of silence from her phone. I'd hear the water running and wonder if it was just routine or if she was washing off the scent of someone else. I ignored all of it. Pieced each excuse into a puzzle I didn't want to see clearly. Because routine was easier. Routine made me feel like nothing had changed. We still had breakfast together most mornings. We still laughed at reruns of The Office. We still took turns doing the dishes. But behind it all, something had shifted. Her laugh didn't reach her eyes anymore. Her hugs had a kind of distance in them, like she was already halfway out the door. Even the way she said my name had changed, less weight, less warmth. Just syllables floating in air. I noticed. I just didn't want to. Until Sunday. That morning cracked something open in me. Not just because of what I saw, but because of what I finally let myself admit. This wasn't new. It had been happening. I just hadn't been willing to believe it. Monday came fast. I drove to work like I always did, same route, same songs on the radio. But my mind wasn't in it. Every red light became a moment to spiral. Every stop sign an invitation to replay old conversations under a new light. Her voice saying he's just a coworker. Her phone buzzing at dinner, her casually flipping it over without reading the screen. The way she suddenly cared more about how she looked before going out. How she had started going out more often in general. And always, there was a reason. An explanation. A version of the truth just close enough to believable. She was good at it. But not perfect. I remembered one night, just a couple weeks ago, when I walked into our bedroom and found her whispering into her phone. I caught only a single word soon, before she hung up, startled. She said it was her sister. But her sister always called on speaker. Always. I went to work, sat through meetings, nodded when I was supposed to, contributed just enough to pass as present. But the whole time I was unraveling. Quietly. Internally. Like a wire coiling tighter and tighter around my chest. I tried talking to a friend, my coworker Nate. I didn't say much. Just mentioned that Brooke had been acting off. He gave me a look. One I couldn't quite read. Then he clapped my shoulder and said, "Relationships go through phases, man. Don't sweat the small stuff." Was this small stuff? The jacket didn't feel small. That night, I told myself I'd ask her. Just flat out ask. Who was here Sunday morning? But when I got home, she was already on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through her phone like nothing had ever happened. She smiled. Hey, you're home late. And just like that, my resolve folded. I sat next to her, pretended everything was fine, watched TV while my heart screamed for answers I didn't have the courage to demand. Because the truth wasn't just threatening to change my relationship. It was threatening to change who I was. I'd always thought of myself as calm, loyal, steady, the kind of guy you could count on. I thought love meant patience, forgiveness, understanding. But now I was wondering, what do you do when love starts to look like denial? I lay in bed that night with my eyes open, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was dreaming about someone else, wondering if she'd ever really stopped. The worst part wasn't the lies. It was the not knowing what was real anymore. Had she ever really loved me the way I loved her? Had I just been a placeholder while she waited for something more exciting? I hated myself for asking those questions. But they wouldn't go away. They multiplied. By Wednesday, I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound made me jump. Every message she sent me during the day felt like it had a double meaning. Hope your day's going well. Was she checking in? Or checking that I wouldn't be home early? I started scanning her words like a detective looking for code. It was exhausting. By Thursday, I had started checking her location when she said she was grabbing drinks with coworkers. She didn't know I still had access to that setting on her phone. I felt disgusting for doing it, but I needed something, anything, to prove I wasn't losing my mind. She was where she said she'd be. That time. But the doubt didn't leave. Because it wasn't about catching her in a lie anymore. It was about the feeling that our whole life had become a lie. That the home we built together was slowly becoming a stage where I was the only one still playing a role. I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled. I went through the motions. I kissed her goodnight. And every moment, I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller, quieter. Like if I just disappeared enough, maybe I wouldn't have to feel the truth when it finally hit me. But deep down, I already knew. It wasn't a question of if I'd catch her. It was when. And worse, what I'd do once I did. Friday started off like any other day. But there was something under my skin that wouldn't settle. A twitch, a hum, an invisible thread pulled too tight. I couldn't explain it. Brooke had been texting me all morning. Short, casual messages. How's your day? Want sushi tonight? Love you, babe. They used to mean something. Now they felt like camouflage. At lunch, I canceled a meeting just to sit alone in my car. I don't know why, I just needed the silence. I leaned my seat back and closed my eyes, trying to remember what peace used to feel like. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Brooke. Might be home a little late. Going over a pitch with Sarah after work. Sarah. Again. I stared at that name for a long time. I'd never met Sarah. Never seen a photo, never heard a voicemail. Just a name she pulled out whenever she needed an alibi that sounded harmless. A name she made real by saying it often enough. My thumbs hovered over the screen. I wanted to write back, tell Sarah I said hi. Or, make sure she knows how much you love sushi too. Instead, I wrote, no problem. Drive safe. Later that day, I found myself pacing in front of my car after work, keys in hand. The parking lot was almost empty, the sun dipping low behind the office buildings. My heart pounded like I was about to do something irreversible. I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait anymore. No more second-guessing, no more pretending not to notice. I was going home, early. I drove like I was on autopilot. My hands knew the way even though my thoughts were a mess. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. The street was quiet when I pulled up. Our driveway empty. Good. I unlocked the door softly, slipping inside like I didn't belong there. The house was dark except for the dim kitchen light she always left on. It smelled faintly of her perfume. A different one. Warmer. More deliberate. The kind of scent you wear when you want to be remembered. I kicked off my shoes and stood still for a moment, ears straining. Then I heard it. Laughter. From upstairs. A woman's laugh. Hers. And then a man's voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild or chaotic. It was calm. Int asterisk mate. The kind of laughter that comes after a shared joke or a soft confession. Not the kind of sound you make with a coworker named Sarah. My throat tightened, and the air turned heavy in my lungs. I moved slowly, step by step, up the staircase I'd helped paint 2 summers ago. The hallway stretched in front of me like a tunnel. The bedroom door was cracked open just an inch. A soft glow spilled out. I stopped 2 feet away. My heart was thudding so loud I could barely hear over it. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stood there and looked. Through the crack in the door, I saw her. Brooke, lying in bed, sideways, one knee bent. She was laughing, head tilted back, hair cascading over the pillow like something out of a dream I used to have. She wore one of the new nightgowns I hadn't seen before. Black, lace trim, the kind that never made it into the laundry. Next to her was a man, maybe mid-30s, light brown hair, athletic build. He was propped on one elbow, his face close to hers, grinning like he belonged there. Neither of them saw me. Neither of them had any reason to look toward the door. I could have burst in, yelled, screamed, thrown something, demanded answers, but I didn't. I just stood there, watching the truth unwrap itself with the kind of slow cruelty that only reality can deliver. My hands were cold, my stomach hollow. I turned around quietly, walked back down the stairs, and left. I don't remember locking the door behind me. I don't remember starting the car. I just remember driving. Anywhere. Nowhere. The streets blurred under my headlights, and I didn't feel anything for a while. Not anger. Not grief. Just a numb detachment, like I was watching a scene play out in someone else's life. I pulled into a gas station somewhere outside town and sat there, engine off, staring through the windshield. I thought about texting her. Not to accuse, just to say I knew. But what would that do? She'd lie. She'd say it wasn't what it looked like. She'd use words like confused and complicated. I didn't want to hear them. Instead, I scrolled back through our text thread. So many I love yous. So many shared links, grocery lists, inside jokes. I stared at a photo she'd sent just 2 weeks ago. Her holding up a glass of wine with a wink. Caption, "Wish you were here, babe." She was at a hotel conference for work, supposedly. But now I wondered who took the picture. Who was she actually wishing for? I didn't cry. That surprised me. Instead, I thought about the stupidest things. Like how we always fought over thermostat settings. How she used to steal the covers. How she insisted on cutting crusts off her sandwiches even as an adult. I wanted to hold on to those things. I really did. But they didn't feel like mine anymore. They belonged to someone else. A version of her I could never get back. I stayed in the car until my phone buzzed. A message from her. "Brooke, are you still out? Sushi's getting cold," face blowing a kiss. That emoji. The knife twist. I didn't reply. I started the car and drove to my cousin's place in Aspen. He'd told me before that I was always welcome, but I never thought I'd take him up on it. I called from the road and asked if the offer still stood. He didn't ask questions. Just said yes. The mountains were quiet. The snow was fresh. Everything felt still in a way I hadn't known I needed. I spent that night lying on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time I felt like Brooke actually saw me. Not just as someone to text, not just as someone to split bills with, but as me. Couldn't remember. In the morning, I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't rage. I let the silence do what words couldn't. I didn't leave a note. I didn't pack up the house. I just disappeared into the quiet, letting the stillness speak for itself. Letting the absence be the answer. Because she'd made her choice. Now it was my turn. I didn't go home that night. After what I saw. Brooke in bed with that man, her voice soft and laughing, her fingers brushing his arm like she'd done to me 100 times. I couldn't. I didn't drive far. Just out of town, along a winding stretch of highway that curved around the hills and led to nowhere in particular. I kept the music low, windows cracked, letting the cold wind sting my face. My phone buzzed in the console twice. I didn't look. Around midnight, I stopped at a 24-hour diner on the edge of a town I didn't know. The place was empty. Just me, the waitress, and an old man nursing a slice of pie. I sat in a booth by the window and ordered a coffee I didn't want. Just something to hold. Something to do with my hands while the rest of me tried to hold itself together. The overhead light buzzed faintly, and every few seconds, the heater kicked on like a breath too loud. I stared at the swirling cream in my cup until it settled into that cloudy, muddy color that meant nothing anymore. I thought I'd cry. I didn't. Instead, I felt blank. Like the pain was too big to feel yet. Like it hadn't decided where in my body to live. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in my car when the diner closed, wrapped in a hoodie I found in the back seat, watching the darkness turn to blue. When the sun rose, I knew I couldn't go back. Not yet. I drove to Aspen. My cousin Josh had offered his place to me more than once. Said if I ever needed space, he had a guest room with my name on it. I used to laugh it off. Now I wasn't laughing. I texted him when I was halfway there, just a single line, "You still have that spare key?" He replied in seconds. "Under the flower pot. Come as long as you need." No questions. No judgment. The town was blanketed in snow when I arrived. Quiet, muffled, peaceful. Everything I wasn't. His house was up on a hill, tucked between trees, the kind of place where time slows down. I let myself in and stood in the foyer for a long time, snow melting off my boots, listening to the silence. It wrapped around me like a coat I didn't ask for but couldn't take off. I dropped my bag in the guest room and lay down on the bed fully clothed. I closed my eyes and saw her face. Not the real one, but the version I used to know. The one that looked at me with something real. Something honest. Where had that version gone? Had she ever existed? I stayed in Aspen for days. Didn't answer her texts. Didn't take her calls. The first few messages were short. "Hey, where are you?" Then, "Can you at least let me know you're okay?" By the third day, they got longer. Apologetic. Anxious. She asked if I was mad, if I was avoiding a conversation, if we were still okay. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't okay. And there was no conversation to be had. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, I came home early and found you in our bed with a stranger. Just wanted to check in and talk about boundaries?" No. The silence said more than I ever could. At night, I recorded voice memos on my phone. Not for her. For me. I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, snow falling soft around the trees, and I'd speak like I was writing a letter to my future self. "I don't know why it hurts more that she laughed," I said one night. The laugh was the part that stuck with me. That soft, familiar one. The one I thought belonged to us. Another night, I'm trying to remember how this started. What I missed. Was it something I did? Or didn't do? Most nights, I ended them with a whisper, "Please don't forget how this feels." Because I knew I'd be tempted to. To rationalize. To rewrite the truth as something cleaner, something less cruel. But I needed the memory to stay sharp. I needed the sting. On the sixth day, Josh sat with me on the porch. He didn't say much, just handed me a hot drink and stared into the trees like the answers were buried in the snow. "You know," he said, finally breaking the silence, "I thought you two were solid." "Yeah," I replied. "So did I." We didn't talk about it again. That night, I finally opened her messages. She'd sent 11 since I left. I read every one. Some were frantic. Some calm. One sounded like she thought I was just taking time for myself and we'd work through it when I was ready. She didn't know what I saw. She didn't know I stood outside the bedroom door watching her with him. And I wasn't going to tell her. Not now. Because I didn't need her to explain. The truth had unfolded in silence, and silence was how it would end. I stayed in Aspen 2 more weeks. Enough time to catch my breath. To stop waking up with my chest in knots. To realize that as much as I hated what had happened, I was still breathing. Still me. Different now, maybe. But not broken. One night, I stood outside barefoot in the snow just to feel something sharp. The cold bit at my skin, and I let it. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "You don't get to have this." I wasn't sure who I meant. Brooke. Him. The part of me that still wanted to pretend it could be fixed. Whoever it was, I meant it. The next day, I packed up my bag, folded the blanket on the guest bed, and left a thank you note on the kitchen counter for Josh. I didn't know where I was going next. But I knew it wasn't back to the version of life I had before. She texted me again that morning, "Please just talk to me. I'm scared." I let the message sit. Unread. Because the silence had become my voice now. And she'd never hear it the same way again. It had been 18 days since I left. 18 days since I heard her voice, saw her face, felt her presence in the same room as mine. You'd think that would be enough time for something inside me to settle, but it wasn't. If anything, the stillness just made the truth louder. The pain didn't scream anymore. It whispered. In the middle of the night, in the spaces between thoughts, in the quiet after I hung up with a friend who didn't ask too many questions. That kind of hurt sneaks up on you. No warning. No ceremony. Just a cold hand brushing the back of your neck when you least expect it. I waited until a Tuesday to go back to the house. I knew she'd be at work. Or at least, she said she was. Her calendar still synced to mine, one of those convenience things that used to mean something. Now it was a window into a world I didn't belong in anymore. I didn't go back for closure. I went back because I had to gather what was mine, to carve a line in the floor where my life ended and hers continued. The second I stepped inside, I felt it. The scent. Her perfume. That same too sweet floral thing she'd started wearing a month or two before everything collapsed. I used to compliment it. Thought she'd picked it for me. Now I knew better. I stood in the entryway, keys in hand, and just breathed it in. Not because I wanted to, but because it hit me like a punch. The familiarity. The lie stitched into it. I didn't walk through the house at first. I just stood there. The couch was still where we'd left it. That same soft gray one we spent too much money on because she said it felt like a hug. Now it felt like a crime scene. I didn't sit. I walked into the kitchen. Same coffee mugs. Same grocery list on the fridge. A half-empty carton of almond milk in the door. She never liked almond milk until he did. I remembered her saying it once, months ago, offhandedly. He says it's better for digestion. I didn't ask who he was. I was chopping onions at the time. Missed my chance to catch the first real clue. I opened the drawer where we kept the takeout menus. Still there. Still organized. But now every restaurant made me feel nauseous. The Thai place where she said she had a girls' night. The pizza joint she waited an hour for on her solo Friday movie binge. All poison now. Even the salt shaker felt suspicious. I took only what I needed, what I could stand to carry without burning my hands. My clothes. A few books. A watch my dad gave me. A box of letters Brooke had written me over the years, notes on birthdays, anniversaries, post-it messages left on mirrors. I packed those last. Not because I still cherished them, but because I needed the record. Proof that once something had been real. Even if it ended in ash. I walked into the bedroom slowly. The air felt thicker there. Like time had slowed. The sheets were different. Not the set we bought together. These were new. White. Crisp. Too neat. It was like the room had been scrubbed of everything we shared. Our bed had become a stranger's. And maybe that was the goal. On the dresser sat a framed photo of us from a wedding in Portland, smiling, happy, unaware. I didn't take it. I left it there. The version of me in that picture didn't exist anymore. I opened her closet door. Not to snoop. Just to see. It was filled with new clothes. Dresses I didn't recognize. Shoes that were too bold for her old style. She'd reinvented herself without telling me. Layer by layer, she'd been becoming someone else. I shut the door. Gently. The bathroom was the last room I visited. Out of habit, I turned on the light. Same fixtures. Same smell, lavender shampoo and something musky I couldn't name. And there, sitting on the edge of the sink, was a toothbrush that wasn't mine. Black handle. Worn bristles. Not the one I left behind. Not the one she'd ever used. I didn't touch it. I didn't have to. It said everything. I stepped back into the hallway and stared at the walls. We'd painted them together. Argued about the color. She wanted something warmer, but I pushed for cool tones. We compromised. Now the walls looked cold, impersonal. Like a hotel. I paused in the living room one last time. She was standing there in a photo on the shelf, arms around my neck, laughing. I remembered that day. We'd gone to the farmer's market. She spilled orange juice on my jeans and couldn't stop laughing. I was annoyed. Then I laughed too. That was 3 years ago. A century, it felt like. She came home early. I heard the door open and her keys drop in the bowl. Ryan, she called out like she didn't know what silence meant by now. I didn't answer. She walked into the room slowly like she was bracing for something. When she saw me standing by the bookshelf, she froze. She was wearing a sweater I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago. It looked too small now. Or maybe she'd grown into someone else entirely. Hey, she said softly like she was trying out the word. I didn't say it back. She looked tired. Not the physical kind. The kind that settles into your bones when you've built something crooked and it starts to fall. You're here, she said, like she needed confirmation. I'm just packing. She nodded. Her arms crossed tightly over her chest. A shield. A tell. You didn't return my messages. I know. Silence stretched between us. She stepped forward slowly. I didn't know if I should give you space or come find you. You gave me space, I said. Right after you let someone else into our bed. Her face dropped. The pretense drained out of her like someone opened a valve. I never meant for you to see that, she said, eyes welling. That's the part you regret? I mean, she stopped. Took a breath. I was going to talk to you. I just didn't know how. I shook my head. You did. You knew exactly how. You just didn't want to. You were hoping I'd stay quiet long enough for it to stay convenient. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. She started crying. I watched her wipe her cheeks, hands shaking. I never stopped loving you, she said. And maybe she believed it. But that didn't make it true. I'm not here to talk about us, I said. There's no us. I'm just here to collect what's mine. She didn't stop me. Didn't argue. She just stood there. A statue in a house full of memories turned evidence. I picked up my bag and walked past her. When I reached the door, she called out one last time. Ryan. I turned. Do you hate me? No. I meant it. Hate takes energy. And I had nothing left to give her. The papers came in a manila envelope, no note, just instructions on where to sign. Cold. Mechanical. Like ordering furniture online. I stared at the lines bearing our names, Ryan and Brooke, bound together in legal ink, now being severed the same way. She didn't call. Didn't explain. Just sent the documents like it was an invoice. I eventually did call her, not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I needed to understand how she could make ending our marriage feel like scheduling a dentist appointment. She picked up, her voice oddly formal. She talked like a stranger. Brief, polite, distant. As if we hadn't shared a home, dreams, years of history. That hurt more than the affair. Not the betrayal of body, but the betrayal of memory. That night, I signed the papers. Not because I wanted to move on, but because I knew I couldn't stay where I'd been. I deleted her number. Changed mine. Blocked her on everything. Not out of spite, but survival. I started jogging again. Picked up shifts volunteering at a local shelter. The dogs didn't lie, didn't ghost, didn't pretend. Silence became a friend, not a punishment. One evening I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail came through. I listened. It was him. The man from our bedroom. He said Brooke had already moved on to someone else. That she was doing the same thing again. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. That call wasn't closure. It was confirmation. She was never really about me. She was a pattern. And I had finally stepped out of it. What followed wasn't grief. It was clarity. I wasn't healing to win her back. I was healing because I deserved to be whole. Alone didn't mean broken. It meant free.